Hello, welcome to Business Success Talk. I'm Daniel Ortiz, and today my guest is Dean Martinez. Dean, welcome to our program.
Thank you.
Dean is a community supporter and a realtor specializing in the Hispanic market. So we want to talk about that. You're a recent guest to Santa Fe, so bienvenidos.
Thank you.
Before we get into your business, Dean, tell us about your American dream and what it means to you.
Daniel, I think really the American dream for me starts when I was a young kid being raised in Pueblo, Colorado. And in a Hispanic family, it was always taught, I was always taught that, you get involved, you connect with family, there's always family around, and you give back.
Right.
So for me, I learned very early on there's big benefits to giving back. Mm-hmm. And I think ultimately, as my life has played out, it's really become fulfilling to give back to the community, and knowing that reciprocity always happens when you live a life, I believe, grounded, have some spirituality, and help people out. And really, the business that I'm in, real estate, was a perfect fit for me because it incorporates all of those things for me to be able to come into Santa Fe after being in the Denver market my whole life. Mm-hmm. My wife and I retired. And see how I may impact the community in a small way that I may, just as I did in Denver.
Okay. Well, Santa Fe definitely is a unique housing market, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But you mentioned a couple of things, being an Hispanic, growing up in Pueblo, Colorado. Now, I'm not going to get into the distinction between whether Pueblo's chili is better than our chili. I think that's been settled. But you mentioned something about being Hispanic, and in my book I wrote called How to Achieve the American Dream Without Losing Your Land, and identified three core Hispanic values, which are distinct from American values, which we still have. But one of them is it's faith, family, and frijoles, and you hit on
nice.
frijoles' culture. But family is a big part of being an Hispanic in service. So tell us, how did you get started in the real estate business in particular? And you started in Denver, you said.
I did.
Okay.
Shortly after high school, moved into Denver, and I received training in different areas, ultimately ended up in sales. And I think for me, I took a Dale Carnegie course, which was one of the better things I think I ever did, because it did instill in me those same core principles, because coming into an industry you know nothing about, you think, oh, it's selling, it's talking.
You were how old at that time?
I took my first class about 30. I was about 30 when I started looking at sales.
Okay.
So from there, I went to the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in Denver, and I worked as vice president of marketing for roughly 3 years. Great experience. It was outside sales. I met a lot of people, mayors and governors, and we had a big conference where...
When you say sales, you mean you were enrolling people into becoming members of the chamber?
Correct.
Okay.
And I started out with small members, mom and pop businesses, which I really enjoyed. And then it evolved into corporations, which there was a big base in Denver.
Right. And was that a new chamber at the time, or had it existed for a while?
The Hispanic Chamber in Denver been around a long time, yes.
Okay, all right. Mm-hmm. What was the size, roughly?
Well, at the time I started was 400 members. When I left, it was 1,000 members, and it was because of a great team. We had a great marketing team, and you know how that works. Nonprofits are very small, so we rely on the membership quite a bit as well.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So do you have any businesses when you were a kid? Anything kind of plant a seed in you? Because one of the things about people don't realize that most sales, particularly in real estate, it's commission only.
Right.
Right. I mean, you either do well or you starve. I mean, there's no in between.
Right.
There's no guaranteed paycheck. There's no benefits, and maybe they may set it up secondarily, but you either make it or break it on your own. So that takes a different kind of mindset, right? It's very entrepreneurial. Core values generally are freedom. You like the freedom to set your own hours, set your own pace, and the consequences are what they are, right?
That's right.
Okay. So as you were a kid, did you have any kind of money-making ventures?
Well,
Something that planted the seeds early? Because that's one of the patterns
bet.
I've seen a lot of entrepreneur guests. As when they were a kid, there was, I used to mow lawns and cut weeds. In Santa Fe, we don't have a lot of lawns. We have a lot of weeds. We used to cut weeds, sell bottles. So.
Yeah, right. Well, Daniel, very good question. I think from a very early childhood, I was so fascinated by sports. Athletics was I used to eat, sleep, and drink it. And consequently, I think we use the word corazon, in our culture, and, it means heart. And early on, I just had this desire to be around sports. I was a gym rat. Ultimately, I think I had side jobs periodically, but I can't point to anything more than this, this heart I had around being competitive. And I think that competitiveness really did serve me as I moved into the business industry. But I had aunts and uncles that did all the different types of entrepreneurship that was in my blood. So I think it was a natural, but I remember one time I was a manager at Robert Waxman Camera and Video downtown Denver, and I remember the sales manager talking to me, interviewing me to move me into a management position. He said, you're not by resume, you're not the smartest guy here, but I can tell you one thing, you have something that a lot of people don't. And I said, what's that? He says, you have desire, because I was a salesperson, for commission only salesperson for 7 years. And, I was always in the top 5, but I enjoyed helping people. So it came back to that premise is if you help people, and real estate is a big, helpful kind of industry that is really scary for people making those large purchases. So that's kind of carried me into the business.
Okay, all right. Good to know. Well, I always say that entrepreneurs are born, not made. You said it's just something that's always within you, the corazon aspect of it. And I think, and it takes all kinds of people to make the world go around. It's not one is better than the other. But, the core values of people who are in sales and have that corazon, you can't teach that a lot of times. A lot of people go into sales thinking they're going to make money or whatever, and they find out very quickly that it's different. It's like swimming. You can't learn how to swim reading a book. Right. You got to get into the water and you got to flap around, and so that's interesting. So I want to go back to what are the myths I think people have about sales and entrepreneurs. And if you look at movies, right, going back to like It's a Wonderful Life, if you have in a movie, in a film, there's always the hero and the villain and other characters, and the villain, more than likely than not, is usually the business person, right? Remember Dallas back in the day, JR, everybody loved to hate JR. But really, it's the opposite. The really successful salespeople that I've seen over the years in my business, and I'm a former stockbroker, so we did the same thing. It really is about service. It's a myth that salespeople and entrepreneurs in general are just after the money. It's really greater than that, isn't it? Money's a consequence of the work, but you got to love it.
Yep. Well, I think, as I look back in my career, and I've been so fortunate and blessed to be able to have a career that I thoroughly enjoy. And that aspect of helping people really shows up, especially with young folks trying to buy a house. They're scared, they don't know. There's predatory stuff that happens out there. And you meet them sometimes on the internet, and they just, they need a lot of hand-holding.
Right.
But the main thing is that I try to instill trust right out of the, out of the chute, if you will. And if they feel like they can trust me, they have to like me, and they feel I can execute, then usually it's going to be a smooth ride.
It's axiomatic. People do business with people they know, they like, and they trust.
Yes.
Right, in that order. And so I guess with the sales, the first step is getting people to know you.
Right.
Right, particularly you're relatively new to Santa Fe, and I'm going to talk about that transition in a little bit. So you were working in a camera sales position and commission only.
Correct.
Okay. How did you segue into real estate, and why real estate as opposed to mortgages or insurance or selling airplanes or something else?
Well, good question. I'll jump back to how I ended up in camera business. I was in broadcasting, and I was part of a union shop in Denver for KOA radio, and they terminated the contract with the engineers and gave us 3 months severance and said, it's been nice. And it was 8 years, I think, I had there. So I thought long and hard. I took the Dale Carnegie class. I said, I'm going into sales. I sold cellular phones for a while, and then ultimately landed at the camera location downtown Denver. And I sold for 8 years. And then the owner sold the chain. And a big company out of Texas came in, didn't run the company the same way, and 14 out of 15 managers all left within about 4 months. So I decided to leave at that point, didn't know what I was going to do, took a leap of faith. I remember walking by a community center, and it said Hispanic Chamber Job Bank Opportunity. And so I went into the Hispanic Chamber, and I said, you had a job bank? And they go, yeah, but you know what? We have a position available right now. I said, okay, hold on just a minute. So they brought out the management person, and they said, yeah, we have a position right now. I said, well, I'm sales. I've never worked for a nonprofit before. Is there an opportunity, to help people and to make decent money? And they said, absolutely. So I said, okay, I'm going to give this a 1-year period. I'm going to give back to the community for a year. Well, a year became 3. We won the large Chamber of the Year in Washington, D.C. We had just did a fabulous job in 2000 to win that, and it was just an amazing experience. I met governors and ambassadors, and
chambers do provide quite an outlet for entrepreneurs, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And
absolutely.
And I think what our audience may not know is that there's the National U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for the country, but it's made up of individual chambers throughout in individual cities. So you won the national award.
Yes.
For Denver. So we're gonna take a little bit of a break here, and we're gonna come back, and I want to ask you a very important question about. It seems to me that the notion of getting a job never occurred to you, because I don't see that in your pattern here. So we're gonna take a short minute break, and I want our audience to join us back in a few minutes, and we'll continue with the story of Dean Martinez. Thank you. Hello, welcome back to Business Success Talk. I'm Daniel Ortiz, and today my guest is Dean Martinez. Dean, we mentioned this in the break here. So with the pattern that you exhibited, I talked earlier about the business mindset, the entrepreneur mindset. It seems like the notion of getting a job never occurred to you. Is that right?
Exactly right, Daniel.
Or maybe you thought about it. Sometimes we flirt with it. If like you got laid off, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes.
Of your sales position. So a lot of people would think, and I don't know if you were married then, if you had responsibilities, and that's usually a factor. So did the idea of you getting a regular job, 9-to-5 job, occur to you?
Well, it did, but the saying of being all in and this competitiveness I talked about, and being a person who really tries to do the right thing and be plugged in with the community and spirituality, I kind of this might sound corny, but I kind of let the guy upstairs kind of guide me, really.
Well, you mentioned a leap of faith. What was the leap of faith?
Well, the leap of faith is trusting that I'm going to be guided to where I need to be, and all of those principles that kind of help me to be who I am, and they did. And when I went to the chamber, it was helping members connect with each other to do business with each other.
Right.
I love that. And it was just, really connecting like we are and helping people. And that's been the story so far of my life.
Okay. So maybe you weren't consciously aware of it, but I'm going to ask you this question. My former life, I was a stockbroker, and I dealt with people with retirement investments. But I found that my favorite, and I became aware of this afterward, my favorite clients were the entrepreneurs, the business people. I was just fascinated how they made their money and the way they thought compared to the other person who maybe retired after 30 years and safety, security, and comfort, their primary objective. Nothing wrong with that. But the entrepreneurs are fascinating. So I was wondering if the people that you are working with or helping in Denver, because chamber members are entrepreneurs, and you just are more in sync with people who are like you.
Absolutely. Risk takers. I met so many Hispanic business people, and Denver is rich with Hispanic professionals, entrepreneurs, politicals. And I met mayors. Greg Lopez just ran for governor. He didn't win, but he made the top 5 cut. Nobody anticipated he would. And so meeting individuals like that, and you're absolutely right. What makes them tick? But they all have that corazon inside of themselves.
That fire in the belly, the heart. Yeah,
and they make it happen.
Right. And we see risk differently, though, don't we? You say risk, when the average person hears risk, it's something they run away from.
Yes.
And the entrepreneur sees risk, we see opportunity. Otherwise, there would be, every opportunity has risk. It's the other side of that coin, right? Otherwise, everybody would be doing it, and then it wouldn't be an opportunity anymore.
Well, and that's that leap of faith. Going into broadcasting was a leap of faith. Going into to be a realtor, everything I think that I've done has been a risk. And my mother would be, oh, what are you doing, Ito? Why don't you just stay over here? It's safe.
That's a Hispanic mother, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And no, I saw uncles take those risks. I was around risk takers, and so that's all I knew. And like you said, it might be unconscious, but whatever it's been, it's just guided me my whole life.
Okay. So let's segue into this new part of your life.
Sure.
You moved from Denver, you got involved in real estate here, now you're involved in the Santa Fe real estate market, which I think you agree, we all agree, it's a unique market in so many different ways. So what brought you to Santa Fe, and what's unique about this market? And we'll get into who you're helping here specifically.
Sure. Well, the quick story is my wife and I came to Santa Fe for a 4 or 5 day break and stayed at a spa. And my wife, Gloria, has been working for a workman's comp company in Denver, quasi-state. Anyway, she's at the tail end of her retirement time. So we came to Santa Fe, and we had this incredible 4 or 5 day weekend at the resort, relaxed, enjoyed everything. And we got back, and about 2 weeks later, she goes, I think I'd like us to retire in Santa Fe.
That's not an unusual story or a unique story. I hate to say that, but so many people come on vacation or visit and they think, wow, we're going to move here, right?
Well, and I said, give me a couple weeks. I got the house on the market. Happened to be top of the market in Denver. We were blessed, did very well. We sold the house while we were out here, put it on the market on Thursday. We were here that weekend, got a full price offer, went back, got the house ready, and moved.
Very good. So what's unique about the Santa Fe market that is opposed to like Denver or other areas? I mean, being from here, and I have an idea. We all know what we grew up with. So
sure.
I was surprised when I started traveling, going outside of Santa Fe, that housing prices were so low. These other areas, even in Albuquerque compared to here. So what's unique about this market, and what are the challenges that you're helping people overcome to get a home in Santa Fe?
Well, it's an interesting market to say the least. $1 million houses, abundant. Number 1 luxury market in the world. I'll preface that by whoever wrote the article. indicating the best values here are for those second properties. You get most land, biggest houses. So that being said, it's transient. There's a lot of people coming and going. I'm amazed at how many transactions happen
So
here in Santa Fe.
that's good news for realtors, right? Because people
It
are buying
is.
and selling, right? They're buying and selling.
Well, they say there's 800 realtors here, and I say no problem. Denver had 20,000.
Yeah.
So for me, it is about getting involved, and I think that the business side of it's going to take care of itself. Santa Fe Properties is who I'm with, and they're a great company, been around 35 years. So for me, I think the biggest challenges are where do I meet people? This is a great venue for me. Thank you. An opportunity to kind of share my story and have those opportunities. So I have strategic relationships with lenders. I'm getting out in the community. My wife works for the Santa Fe Chamber, so they had a big conference and I volunteered. Whatever they'd like me to do, I do those things. But as far as the market goes, there's great opportunities here. The problem is the price of properties. Unlike, well, Denver has gone just completely crazy as well. But Santa Fe, I think, you know, is a $500,000 to $350,000 to $500,000. And there's no such thing as first-time home buyer opportunities for $100,000 properties.
They don't exist, right?
Yeah, so there's challenges, but there's opportunities, and what I think I do best is when I meet somebody, I'm able to help them with a direction, of
So I was gonna
course.
just ask that. So, I mean, buying a house, particularly for a first-time home buyer, and if they tend to be in the younger end of the scale, it's a little overwhelming. So, and I understand there's different programs that they may not be aware of that help them get into a home, especially like with down payment assistance and everything else. Can you share a little bit about that, what's available?
Absolutely. There are several nonprofits here in Santa Fe that based on income, okay, you can't have, you know, 25, 30,000 in the bank and then try to get into one of these programs where they're going to give you, you know, 5 to 7% of the purchase price for your down payment and closing costs. They're out there, it's based on need, but the opportunities are there. There's plenty of money available in Santa Fe for somebody who has the means, good work history, good credit score, and then there's classes. There's education classes so that they can go and find out from the starting point of the process all the way to the closing and everything in between. So that's part of my job, is to help educate.
Right, right. Yeah, I found that when I was, again, going back to my experience as a stockbroker, I started doing seminars, and the more I taught, educated, the more business I got. So it is really about education and finding somebody, again, that's one way that they get to know you, to like you, and trust you, and then ultimately do business with you. So we talked about buying a house. What about selling a house in Santa Fe, particularly at the middle to higher upper end? What are the challenges there?
Well, it's interesting because I live in El Dorado. And
Bought my first house in Colorado.
that's right. Yes,
Sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's transient. There's a lot of selling that's going on for whatever reason. Santa Fe just seems to be a place where everybody wants to come and live, and it not necessarily is the right place for them. So
Right.
ultimately, people who buy a house here may end up selling it in a year or two. So there's a lot of selling going on in this market, although inventory is very tight, but it's still very transient.
Right, right. Well, we had a interesting experience. Again, pattern, you know, being raised here all my life is people come and they'll visit Santa Fe on vacation, and they want to come and they envision themselves at the plaza, right, strolling and having lunch, and so they buy property. And of course, the closer to downtown you get, the higher end it is. You can pay a premium per square foot, and it's generally going to be old,
Right.
right? So it's a remodel job. But they have this vision, and they stay maybe 2 or 3 years, and then they experience the first fiestas, and then Indian market, and Spanish, and all the noise, and then they realize, well, you know, the airport it's not an international airport, and they really miss the comforts of big city life.
Right.
And it's a whole different lifestyle here. So then they're moving out to El Dorado or back home because, you know, Santa Fe just isn't
Right.
isn't the thing.
Well, and you know, just I think that's the part, at least from being new to Santa Fe, I can attest to. You go downtown and you just love the vibe, the restaurants,
Yeah.
just yeah, the hustle bustle of such a small little town.
right.
And I once heard that Santa Fe has a great culture here. There's a lot of really interesting people here.
Oh, yes,
Intelligent.
characters.
And I looked at it, and we got together with neighbors, and no one was from New Mexico. There were about 25 people, and everybody in our neighborhood, and no one was from Santa Fe. They were from Atlanta. They were from New York. They were from Chicago. And so it has this very entrepreneurial people that are smart and educated, and that's what makes it fun.
And I always refer to Santa Fe as very cosmopolitan for its
Yes.
size. I mean, you got people from all over the world here. Actually, there's ambassadors. I mean, it's not like one group or another. There's all over the place, right? And you can even in Santa Fe is unique. Well, maybe not too unique, but it is somewhat unique in the fact that you can be downtown at some dive restaurant, and there's a movie star sitting across the street from you, and nobody cares and nobody bothers them. So we have, quite a few movie stars here as well. All right, so we have just about a minute and a half left. Dean, this interview went very, very quick. So is there anything you want to share, add, and if not, I want to ask you, what advice would you give to anybody who's thinking of getting into the real estate business or moving to Santa Fe? What advice and feedback would you give them?
Well, I think from my point of view is help is out there for people who are looking to purchase properties, and for them to reach out.
And do you have a website? How do people get a hold of you? Do you have a web address?
Yes, I do. If you go to Dean, DEAN .Martinez at sfprops.com.
Dean.Martinez at sf.
Props.
Props.
P-R-O-P-S.
Okay, .com. Okay.
Right.
Very good. All right. Well, Dean, I wish we had more to talk and share. Really wish you the best of luck. I don't think you're going to need it.
Thank you, Dan.
But thank you for sharing your story on this edition of Business Success Talk. And I want to thank our audience for joining us. Make sure to visit us online at latinosuccess.com.